Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on careers. I'm Cassie Barlow, and I'm the president of the Strategic Ohio Council for Higher Education. And I am very lucky to have with me today Pat Lance, who is an architect at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and he's going to be joining us for our conversation today. I'd like to start, though, by thanking the Ohio College Tech Prep organization for being our partner in producing these webinars and bringing them to you across the state of Ohio. So thank you to Ohio College Tech Prep. And we're going to go ahead and dive in and get started today. So first and foremost, I mentioned we're talking to Pat Lance, and he is an architect, and he works at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. Pat, thank you for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome.
And we're going to dive in and start getting at the questions that we have on the agenda for today. So if you can tell me a little bit about your job and how it impacts your organization's success at Wright-Patterson.
Well, I am titled as a design manager. My background is primarily construction. The position is advertised as an architectural position, but I'm not a licensed architect. And that's one of the points I want to make to anybody who's watching this, is that architecture is a very broad field. And I feel that there's room for everybody in this field. My career path has been a little bit non-traditional, but I think I have enough experience that I could comment on the traditional career path that someone might take. But at Wright-Pat, we have over 600 buildings. Depending on how you count, some people say it's as high as 900 buildings, but there's a lot of work to do. And we are charged with supporting the mission of keeping our country safe. And everything we do is to support that mission. So there's a lot of remodeling that goes on. There's a lot of different government agencies that are stationed here. And they need a variety of renovations. There's always new buildings that need to be constructed here. There's buildings that need to be tore down on occasion. So that's primarily what we do in what's called the civil engineering branch of Wright-Pat.
Fantastic. So incredibly important. Your job is incredibly important, I would say, to keeping the organizations running, keeping people housed in safe facilities, and then building capacity where needed with new organizations or with new buildings.
That's
So
correct.
what does a typical day look like for you? You get into the office and then what? What's typical for you?
Well, typically I start my day by looking at my Outlook calendar to see what kind of meetings I have. And I guess that's pretty standard for a lot of people, but I need to be reminded of what I'm going to be doing that day. And then I check my emails after that, and I have to respond to a lot of questions from architecture firms, sometimes from customers, and sometimes other departments here at Wright-Pat. So that's typically how I begin my day.
Fantastic. And then it's off to the races, right?
Right. And what a design manager does here at Wright-Pat is we oversee architectural and engineering firms. We hire them. I should say we're involved with hiring them. And then we oversee their work to make sure their work is up to our standards, make sure that they're on schedule, make sure that their work, their drawings and specifications are of good quality.
Mhm.
And we just oversee the design. So that's what a design manager does. And then once the project is ready to bid, we are on hand to assist our procurement department that goes out and takes those drawings and specifications to the AE firm, who then provides a proposal to us. And we scrutinize that proposal, make sure that it's effective in terms of costs, in terms of schedule, make sure they can meet our schedule. And we might even arrange a site visit for them to come look at whatever building we're talking about being remodeled. And then after that, we analyze it and we approve it, and then we oversee the work for that firm once they're hired. After that, once the project is finished in terms of design, we will then assist the construction process. We will be on hand to oversee the construction to make sure that that architect's drawings and specs are adhered to by the contractor.
All righty. Well, thank you.
Mhm.
So how long have you been working at Wright-Patterson and how long within the industry in total?
I've been at this for about 30 years, and I've been here at Wright Pat for almost, I'd say 3.5 years right now.
Okay. All right. So you've been doing this for a while.
I have.
So what is that?
I had hair when I started this.
So what is that one thing that really gets you up and going and gets you to work every day? What is that thing that you really love about your job?
Well, what I really love about my job is I feel like I'm serving my country by being here. I was never in the military, and that's one of my regrets. So this, to me, serving my country in this way is something that's very rewarding. And also, at Wright Pat, we have a great work environment. We have a lot of great people. Everybody's very team oriented. There's not a lot of office politics. It's just a great place to work. And so it's a lot of fun to come here every day.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So on a typical day, how many hours a day do you spend in meetings or working in groups compared to working on your own?
Well, our environment is an open office environment. We all have cubicles, but they're pretty much open. So we're always interacting with other people. As far as, and I would say informally, as far as formal meetings, um, I don't go to many meetings, maybe an hour a day, if that.
Okay.
Usually they're phone calls, they're Zoom calls. But the higher up you go in the food chain here at Wright Pat, you'll be attending a lot more meetings. But most of us try to avoid going to meetings if we can, if we can.
Understand, understand. So what would you say is the biggest challenge in your job every day?
Well, for me, given my career path started out in construction as a construction manager, even though I have an education of architecture. I have an undergraduate in architecture. For me, the hardest thing is understanding building code issues because I never had to do, analyzation of building codes for projects. I was always the guy that hired architects to
Mhm.
figure that kind of thing out for me. So sometimes that becomes an issue, and that's a personal thing based on my career path.
Okay. All right. And then it sounds like your environment is some in the office, some on the work site, little bit of a mix.
Well, that's very astute observation, and that is definitely true. Most of it is in the office, but we do visit job sites.
Okay.
And to me, that is one of the perks of the job, to get out of the
Mhm.
office and to see what is being constructed, or to meet with the client and see what their design needs are. So there is a good variety of being in the office and then being out in the field,
Okay.
which I like.
Absolutely. That's the fun part for sure.
Mhm.
What about being on call? Do you have any on-call requirements?
No, I don't. But I would say I'm always available, not formally on call, meaning
Mhm.
in the evenings, I'll check my email. During the weekend, I'll check email. Uh, I'll stay close to the phone in case anybody has any questions. So technically, no, we're not on call, but I think most employees will try to be available. And if someone said we need you to be on call, I would definitely be happy with that. That'd be fine.
Okay. All right. So tell us what is the education required to get into a position like yours?
Well, for me, it was getting an undergraduate degree in architecture,
Mhm.
and you want to get a professional program by an accredited college.
Mhm.
So educationally, that's really what you want to do. But I have a graduate degree in public administration
Mhm.
because I've been doing a lot of government work in the past 30 years, and I find that having that is a big advantage in this environment. So I'd highly recommend people not stopping at getting an undergraduate degree, but also to get a graduate degree as well.
Absolutely. That continual professional development, extremely important.
Mhm.
So what about when you're looking for a new employee in your organization? What does that candidate typically need? Is it the same, that undergraduate degree in architecture, or are there other options?
Well, to work where I work, you can have an undergraduate degree in architecture, civil engineering, mechanical, probably even construction management,
Mhm.
as long as you have some experience in architecture with architecture firms. So that's the primary thing, but also almost I would say equally important is attitude. You want to have someone who's enthusiastic about being there,
Mhm.
not someone who just wants a job. I do not hire anybody in this current position, but it seems that whenever we do get new employees, they always have a really good positive outlook. And I believe that you can teach anybody anything that they need to know, but they have to be willing to learn. So if they have a good attitude, the sky's the limit for them.
Absolutely. And I'm smiling because that has been, we've done quite a few of these webinars so far. And that really has been a standard across, it doesn't matter what the career, that willingness to learn, and that, that you answered the next question, but um, that's really important in a new employee, is someone who can dive in and be willing to learn something new.
Mhm.
So if you had the opportunity to talk to a student and give some advice on your career, what would you say?
Well, I will say, first of all, it is sometimes hard to give advice to people when you don't know that person. You don't know that person's aptitude. So all that somebody like me can do is give general advice
Mhm.
and universal advice that I think applies to everyone. And so I'll do that now. I'll say that if I was a student and I had somewhat of an interest in this, I would definitely, uh, if you're going to school for it, take electives outside of your college.
Mm.
For example, my architecture program did not have scheduling as a class. So I had to go out to a different college to take it. And the first college I went to was construction management, but the professor in that class would not allow me to take the class. So then I went to the engineering college and they had a scheduling class. So my other point is you're going to have obstacles like this thrown at you all the time. You
Mhm.
just have to work around them, especially if you're a young student who's interested in the field. If your grades aren't good enough, you're going to have to make up for it. You're going to have to just work harder than everybody else. Um, if you want to have a career in government like I have now, there's different ways to do it. One way is to start out in government. I would recommend getting a few years of public, a private sector experience.
Mhm.
I think you would add a lot to the government if you could bring in some private sector experience. So, again, it's hard to give advice if you don't know the person. Some kids might be more artistic, and if that was the case, I would tell them, look at look at the traditional career path. Go to work for an architecture firm, get involved with AutoCAD, do a lot of computer stuff. But if you're more of a pragmatic person, maybe a little less artistic, guess what? There's still room for you in this field. You want to take a different path. Maybe you want to be more involved with the construction process than design,
Mhm.
but you can still come here and work as a design manager. It just depends on how you get here.
Awesome. So lots of different pathways for sure. What about if you had an opportunity to talk to a teacher or a guidance counselor? What would you want them to tell students about being an architect or being in architecture?
Well, I don't want to be redundant, but I would just sort of repeat what I said, and that,
Okay.
I had a guidance counselor. I'll give you a specific example. Who said, well, architecture might not be the field for you because you're not as good at math as some of the other
Mm.
kids, which, I took that with a grain of salt, which meant to me I just needed to study harder in math so I could understand geometry and things like that. So if I was a teacher, I would be cautious not to discourage students based on one particular class that they have. Um, I would definitely encourage them to check it out. And I would also encourage them to maybe work in the field. If you're in high school and before you go to college, if you can find a job working on a construction site, I would encourage a teacher to tell a student to go out and find a job like that so
Mhm.
you can get some exposure and so you can put on your resume. Start building your resume as early as possible. And you'd be surprised what is valuable. There's a lot of things that you will do as a student or as a young person that you won't realize is valuable, but others like me who've been around a while will recognize it to be valuable.
Mhm.
So I will tell you, one of my first jobs was I opened up the phone book, which we had phone books back then. And I started at the A's. I went to construction companies. I started at the A's and I just called everybody in the book.
Wow,
And until I got to the C's and someone agreed to invite me in for an interview. And that's how I got my first job.
that's awesome.
So any teacher, you have to be able to tell the students, listen, you know, with enough hard work, you can overcome any deficiency you have. You want to just work hard and you want to try to pay attention in school and seek out mentors. I mean, people like myself will be glad to give you as much advice as you'd like. So don't be shy. You know, that's the kind of advice I would give a teacher to give to their students.
Awesome. I love it. That's great advice. Absolutely love it. So you come in, say you're a new college grad, you come in with a degree in architecture, civil engineering. What are the pathways that you can expect? And I know it's organizational dependent, but you start out as a junior engineer or a junior architect, and then what are the stepping stones if you want to continue to advance in your career
Well, do you mean at Wright Pat or just in general?
in general? In general.
Well, in general, if you have a degree in architecture, you're going to go to work for an architecture firm and you're primarily going to be put on the computer and you're going to be doing CAD work. So you need to really be good at CAD and you'll be designing details, you'll be doing drawings. Eventually, and sometimes it won't take very long, you'd be surprised, you'll be involved with maybe overseeing the CAD department at your architecture firm.
Mhm.
And you'll be given more responsibility depending on how you do. So if you start out doing CAD, you'll take a lot of direction from just about everybody in the firm, but eventually they will start giving you small projects.
Mhm.
And if you do well on that, you will eventually be giving large projects. And you won't just be designing them, you won't be just putting them in CAD, but you'll be managing those projects. So you don't want to just be a good designer, you also have to be a good manager and you have to plan for that. So take some classes in business law. That's gonna be very valuable. Like I said, take classes in scheduling. Um, and then get some real world experience out in the field.
Sounds great. More great advice. So what about if I'm a brand new graduate? What does that starting salary typically look like?
Well, I would defer that to other people because I'm a little out of touch with that.
Okay.
I don't have a lot of information on what the starting wages are.
Okay.
Sorry to
Okay.
let you down there.
Nope, that's okay. We will pass that one. We'll pass on that. Um, so I asked you a lot of questions. What did I not ask you that you want to tell people about your career and what you do? And did I miss anything?
Um, well, I want to reiterate that the architecture is a broad field, so I can't stress that enough. I have friends who are salespeople. One
Mhm.
gentleman is a representative for a lighting manufacturer. Other people work for subcontractors. So there's a lot that you can do in this field, and there's room for everybody. I would also say, uh, if you're going to be a traditional architect, you still need to develop an appreciation for the trades, for the plumbers, for the electricians, because you as a designer, a lot of your best design ideas are going to come from them. So you really need to be open-minded. You need to be objective. You need to take advice from different sources. And I think if you do that and you combine that with just a general architectural education, I think you'll do very well.
Love that. Fantastic advice. Really appreciate that. And I appreciate you being here with us today. appreciate you taking the time. So thank you. Thank you very much. And thanks once again to the Ohio College Tech Prep Organization for being our partner in producing these webinars for our teachers and our students.
Thank you.